Welcome back. Today we're in John chapter 19. We're reading about when Jesus was taken to Pilate. So it says here, verse 1. So when Pilate took Jesus and scourged him, and the soldiers twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put on him a purple robe. Then they said, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they struck him with their hands. Pilate then went out again and said to them, Behold, I am bringing out to you behold, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no fault in him. So my question is, if Pilate found no fault in him, why did he have Jesus scourged? And that's what the cat o' nine tails with, sharp bones and sharp glass on the ends of that whip that tear the flesh. 39 stripes. This is some serious lashing. Why did he have him scourged if he thought that he was an innocent man? Well, people pleasing. He wanted to keep his political power. He wanted to please the Jews. And as we read on, we'll see more about that. Then Jesus came out, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate said to him, Behold the man. Therefore, when the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate said to them, You take him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him. Then the Jews answered, We have a law, and according to our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God. And so that is what, we are being killed for as Christians today, because we say we're sons of God, and we are indeed God's children. We're sons and daughters of God, and that is what gets us persecuted, just as it got Jesus persecuted and eventually killed. And some of us are even being killed for being sons and daughters of God. 8. Therefore, when Pilate heard that saying, he was more afraid, and went again to the praetorium and said to Jesus, Where are you from? But Jesus gave him no answer. And I want to point out to you here that Pilate's wife, in another gospel account, Pilate's wife had told him she had a dream. And you know how superstitious these people are, because they believe in all type of gods and omens and signs. But she told him she had a dream that this man is innocent, and he was to have nothing to do with this innocent man. So that made him extra nervous when he saw that this was the Son of God. What am I, who am I crucifying here? So let's look at verse 10. Then Pilate said to him, Are you not speaking to me? Do you not know that I have power to crucify you and power to release you? Jesus answered, You could have no power at all against me unless it has been given you from above. Therefore, the one who delivered me to you has the greater sin. And so we know that our political leaders have no power except from God. And so we have to remember to pray for our leaders, as the Bible says, because they are the ones in charge, and whosoever God allows to be in office, we have to pray for them. Right now, we're facing an election, and sometimes it's hard to decide who to vote for. But I just encourage you to vote your values, vote what God, for candidates that support the scriptures. Okay. Now we see here that the Jews says, they say, Jesus says, the one who delivered me to you has a greater sin. And the Jews were the ones who delivered Jesus to Pilate, and they have the greater sin. And sometimes the Jewish people suffer a lot, especially with the Holocaust and different things, and can't help but wonder if some of the suffering is not because of this sin that was so great. That was a greater sin of crucifying the Lord. And in another gospel account, it was recorded that they said, Let his blood be upon us and our children. And I sometimes wonder if that wasn't a part of why their generations also suffered because of this sin. Anyway, let's look at verse 12. From then on, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, saying, "If you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. Whoever makes himself a king speaks against Caesar." And this is very important that they use this against Pilate, because in my footnotes it says here, this statement by the Jews is loaded with irony, for the Jews' hatred of Rome certainly indicated that they too were no friends of Caesar. We know they hated Caesar. They hated Rome and wanted Jesus to overthrow Rome. That's what they expected him to do. So we know that they're only using this to get Pilate to do what they want to do. See how manipulative people can be when they want to get their way. Here it says, they knew that Pilate feared Tiberius Caesar, the Roman emperor at the time of Jesus' crucifixion, since he had a highly suspicious personality and exacted ruthless punishment. Pilate had already created upheaval in Palestine by several foolish acts that had infuriated the Jews, and so was under the scrutiny of Rome to see if his ineptness continued. So he didn't want to make any more bad moves, because apparently he had already messed up in several areas. So the Jews were watching, the Romans were watching him, and he was under Caesar's scrutiny as is. So the Jews knew this. So the Jews were intimidating him by threatening another upheaval that could spell the end of his power in Palestine if he did not execute Jesus. So they knew that he could be stripped of his power, and so they were dangling this over his head. Let's look at, okay, 13. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus out and sat down in the judgment seat in a place where they call the pavement, but in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now it was the preparation day of the Passover, and about 6 hours. And he said to the Jews, "Behold your king." So now he is taunting them, because before he says, "Behold the man," now he's saying, "Behold your king." Because they brought up Caesar, threw that in his face, so now he's throwing this in their face. So it's like a little battle going on here. Verse 15. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" He's teasing them again. The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." So then they throw the Caesar back in his face, as if to say, you get rid of this guy, or we get Caesar on your case. So he delivered him to them. He delivered him to be crucified. So he delivered Jesus over to them, and they took Jesus and led him away. Now you see how people pleasing and the desire to keep our status can really cause us to do things that we don't believe in. Pilate believed that Jesus was innocent, and yet he went ahead and had him scourged. He went ahead and gave Jesus over to the Jews to keep his political position. And sometimes we may not have political position, but we have friendships and probably a position in the church, where we know that certain things are not right in the church, but we don't want to lose our position, so we don't make waves, don't rock the boat. We know certain things are not right in our society, or we might want to reach out to minister to someone, or to pray for someone when we're around our friends, but then we get a little nervous because we don't want our friends to look at us like we're a Jesus freak. And Jesus, so sometimes we have to really stand up. All the time, really, we have to stand up against this desire to please people, desire to keep our position, our status. We don't want to look like a Bible thumper. We want to be cool, so we don't do things, and in a way we deny Christ in our actions, because we don't do what we know is right. And the Bible says, when you know what to do and you don't do it, you know the right thing to do and don't do it, for you it is sin. So sometimes, like Pilate, we sin by doing what would please the crowd and will help us keep our status, keep our job. We might lie for the employer, even though we know that that's wrong, but because we want to keep our job. Some of us have to remember what the sufferings that Christ have gone through for us. and also the sufferings of our brothers and sisters who are losing their jobs, who are losing their homes and their families abroad. And remember that we are to put Christ above all. So with that, we're going to continue in John 19 tomorrow. May God bless you, and thank you for tuning in, and may He give us the courage to stand for what's right, even if it means displeasing the people or losing our status. Okay? God bless you.